Hello, I'm Bob Jeffrey here in New York. Welcome to today's edition of World Makers. From film to fashion, tech startups to advertising, this is a city where things get made. And as the song goes, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Today on World Makers, we'll meet some of the visionaries making the future happen right now. Today, I'm sitting down with Michael Learmonth, Deputy Managing Editor of Advertising Age. Michael, welcome to World Makers.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Michael, you have a very interesting background. You intersect with entertainment, technology, obviously advertising. What's your perspective on where the ad industry is now?
Honestly, if you thought it moved fast 10 years ago, it moves so much faster today. It seems like every day there's a new platform that our business, the ad business, is trying to sort out, figure out how to use and how to leverage. And it's just a great time to be in the news business and a great time to be covering it.
From your vantage point, what do you see as like the biggest trends going on the agency side in terms of what's happening with technology?
What we see is agencies and just our readership in general so eager to sort out new platforms as they get to scale. So honestly, we can't publish enough about Pinterest. I mean, who knew?
Right.
It's just everyone's trying to figure out a strategy around it or decide what it means. And I do think you're right. I think you can't really understand it until you're actually a user. And we saw that with Twitter.
Right, and I think one of the things that's interesting about Ad Age and the position you have is obviously not just connecting with agencies, but it's also connecting on the client side and almost being a voice for clients in the conversation about what brands need to do. So what do you see as similarities and differences between, say, clients and agencies about where digital is and where it needs to go?
I mean, all these new tools have given brands a voice that they've never had before. But, really, they don't really know what to say. And that's where you guys come in. I think you guys are master brand storytellers. And I think regardless of the technology, that ability to tell a story across different technologies is more important today than I think it's ever been.
Yeah, when you talk about telling a story, I think the other aspect of it, too, is where agencies can play a role is just in the area of innovation, meaning going beyond storytelling to how brands themselves can become media properties in terms of how they think about how they participate with their consumers and connect with their consumers.
We're at the beginning stages of this, and there are some brands already doing it amazingly well, and obviously some huge gaffes out there that we've witnessed. But I think that this trend of the brand behaving more like a person, communicating with people in a way that they would kind of expect a community member to communicate with them is an important permanent trend that is just here to stay.
Which, in the world of brands, I think a lot of brands would aspire to do that, but it's hard for them because some of these brands are part of companies where it's a command and control culture in terms of the content that you can put out there, right? So
yeah, it's not just brands; it's media organizations. There's a lot of adapting that has to be done. You see just tons of right sizing left. In media, these organizations adapt to give the audience what they want, as well as brands.
I mean, one principle is that it doesn't matter what category you're in. It's about telling the story, and ideally, if you have, like in the case of Apple, a great product is the foundation for telling the story.
Yeah, I think if you have a great product, in a way, you have it easy. The story is the product.
See, what you just said is, in my mind, is a very important point because historically it was the product is the story, but when you say the story is the product, that's a very different way to think about what we do in terms of content creation.
You look at Red Bull Stratos, they funded a guy to take a balloon into space and break a record, and that created amazing programming.
So let's talk about platforms because you mentioned Pinterest before, but if you're a brand and you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, I mean, what are some of the lessons you think they need to learn from just brands that have been kind of at the tip of the spear with innovating in these areas?
Well, I think there's some core questions. I mean, with Pinterest, we had a piece on adage.com which was very well read, asked the question, as a brand, can you legally even be on Pinterest?
Interesting.
What is you're pulling images that you do not own. You are obviously a big target for anyone who wants to claim ownership of these things. So I think that brands, there's a lot to sort out just on a fundamental level. How can brands act like people? When was the last time you got a Macy's catalog? Probably never. But would you flip through a customized Macy's flipboard that had stuff that you already knew you were interested in? Yeah, you might.
Right.
There's tons of opportunity.
But going back to TV, so I mean, because it was popular for a while for both clients and agents to say TV is dead, and it's clearly not dead.
No, that's been like the greatest myth, really perpetrated by, I think, Silicon Valley on their house press, essentially. They just don't get that TV's far from dead. That reality has trickled in. TV's going to move, that's for sure. It might be on area next week or next year for a big percentage of New Yorkers, but that format, with Mad Men, that 13-episode, mega movie, consumers love it, and it's.
Yeah, I was reading something. I mean, I more or less tend to watch those shows when they're on the air, but I guess they've done the research, and there's a whole trend with people not even watching them discreetly, but actually waiting for the season to end and watching them in the aggregate.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other kind of marketing angle with that.
Right. Well, that's a different set of economics. If you don't subscribe to HBO, you can, get it later on Netflix or, and then binge watch it.
So my point of view about all of this is that there's never been a better time to work with a brand in terms of communications, because there's so much change going on and it's happening so fast that there's so much room for experimentation.
There is. I mean, if you think of the players in the TV space today. I mean, I think Netflix has a better brand than NBC. I mean, it's an amazing ascent of an entertainment player. Amazon is going to be huge in entertainment.
That's great, Michael. Well, thank you for spending the time on World Makers, and thank you for watching the latest edition of World Makers.